We're going to call this video Revelation Study Part 7.5. And the reason we're going to do that is because there was something that I usually talk about when we read Revelation 6. But I didn't talk about it, and I was aware that I wasn't talking about it. But as I was doing Revelation study with my kids earlier this morning, we started talking about it, and I realized, you know what, this is actually a pretty important part, and I don't want to leave anything out. I don't want to try to rush through these studies. I was actually going to suggest that we do one a week, and then I went to plot it out on the calendar, and I realized I won't be here. I will not be here. And I hope that that is a reality check to you, that we don't even have enough time to go through the book of Revelation. That's how short the time is before the Antichrist rises. So I will be gone if it, and we don't have enough time. Let's just put it that way. I hope that you understand that. The reason I wanted to go ahead and add in this video is because I think it's important that we look at Zechariah 6. So in Revelation 6, when we were studying this, we learned that there were different colored horses that were being used, right? Like the Antichrist is riding out on this white horse, and a lot of times that trips people up because you're so accustomed to associating white with purity and with good, and the prince is usually on the white horse, and the villain is on the black horse. But that's not what's going on here, and I explained to you how we know that this is the Antichrist riding out on the white horse. Then in the second seal, we have a fiery red horse. The third seal, a black horse. The fourth seal, we have a pale horse. In Zechariah, there's similar symbolism being used. So God has been known to do this, right? Even with the trumpets, you have the witnesses who are being sealed, the 144,000 being sealed before the first 4 trumpets blow. And those trumpets each trumpet is being represented with an angel, and there's some sort of harm that's coming to the earth. Well, in Ezekiel, when you're seeing the multitude in white robes being sealed, there's a quote-unquote man with a writing kit at his side. So a man instead of an angel in Revelation, with a writing kit at his side. That's who's putting the seal of God, or the mark of God, on their foreheads. On the foreheads of all who grieve and lament the detestable things being done in Jerusalem. So we know it's not the mark of the beast. We're not conflating it. And there are 6 men, or 6 angels, who have a weapon in their hand. So it's a little bit different in terms of the representation that he's using, or the symbolism that he's using, but we're talking about the same thing. So now in Zechariah, instead of it being just one horse that's riding out, it's a chariot of horses, and the colors are still white, red, black, and then dappled. So this is a little bit like what we saw in Ezekiel when we talked about the 4 living creatures, right? They had, in the Revelation, they have the 4 faces, a man, a lion, an eagle, and an ox. And then the same thing in Ezekiel, but then you learn that each of them has 4 faces. So you were seeing just one dimension in Revelation on each of the creatures. Now you're seeing all 4 dimensions of each creature in Ezekiel. And then by Ezekiel, I think it's 10, you learn that the face of the ox is also a face of a cherubim. And there's no one needs to freak out about that. People freak out all the time, and they're like, there's an inconsistency. Not necessarily. God is giving you another aspect of that particular character. And so that is what we discussed that when we discussed the 4 living creatures. Okay, so now we have more information about this chapter, Revelation 6, in Zechariah. And this is why I didn't want to miss this. I didn't want to not talk about it, because if God has deemed that it's important for us to have this additional information in another book of the Bible, then it's important. I don't get to make the decision that we'll just skip over that this time. No, let's make sure that I want to give you guys my best, and even more than that, I want to give God my best. So The book of Zechariah, and in fact, all of the prophets are going to point forward, not just point forward to the arrival of Christ, but point forward to what Christ is doing. And so you can't understand Revelation without understanding the prophets, and you can't understand the prophets without understanding the fulfillment in Revelation. You need all of it. So let's go to Zechariah 6. I looked up again, and there before me were 4 chariots coming out from between 2 mountains, mountains of bronze. The first chariot had red horses, the second had black, the third had white, and the fourth dappled. Oh, okay, so here we have dappled. In Revelation 6, we have pale. Can a horse be both dappled and pale? Yes. A horse can be both dappled and pale. All of them powerful. I asked the angel who was speaking to me, "What are these, my Lord?" The angel answered me, "These are the 4 spirits of heaven." Okay, 4 spirits of heaven, or winds of heaven, and that's what the horses are representing. Going out from standing in the presence of the Lord of the whole world. The one with the black horses is going toward the north country, the one with the white horses toward the west, and the one with the dappled horses toward the south. When the powerful horses went out, they were straining to go throughout the earth. And he said, "Go throughout the earth." So they went throughout the earth. Then he called to me, "Look, those going toward the north country have given my spirit rest in the land of the north." We're going to talk about that translation, because that translation is garbage. What is God like? We already know what the horses represent. They represent judgment, because that's what we saw in Revelation 6. What is God like? Now I can rest. No, that's not what's going on here. That is a garbage translation. The NASB translation says, "Then he called out to me and spoke to me, saying, 'See, those who are going to the land of the north have appeased my wrath in the land of the north.'" This is going to make a little bit more sense. If you are angry about something and you want justice, or you want a situation to be made right, you're going to feel a certain kind of angst until there's some sort of an outlet for that, until your wrath is appeased. So you understand what this is, or at least some aspect of what God is feeling. He's angry because, and we're going to read about why he's angry in Zechariah 5. So we're going to back up to the chapter before to see what's going on, that he's sending these horses and chariots out. Why is he sending this judgment? But you want to understand here in Zechariah 6 that those going toward the north country have appeased his wrath in the land of the north. This is why he's doing this. He is making certain things right. He's leveling the playing field by sending his wrath. This does not have to do with God kicking up his feet and being like, now I can rest. It's appeasing his wrath. He's angry. The word of the Lord came to me, "Take silver and gold from the exiles Heldai, Tobijah, and Jediah, who have arrived from Babylon. Go the same day to the house of Josiah, son of Zephaniah." I'm getting tongue twisted. "Take the silver and gold to make a crown, and set it on the head of the high priest Joshua, son of Jozadak." So Joshua is being used as a sign. "Tell him, this is what the Lord Almighty says. Here is the man whose name is the branch." Capital B, we know that Joshua is being used as a sign. "And he will branch out from this place and will build the temple of the Lord." Okay, we already know that. He's been talking about it. In Zechariah 4, he's talking about it through his witnesses, that that Christ is building his temple, and how we're going to rejoice when the capstone is seen in his hand. Well, the witnesses are going to die, and he's going to continue to build this temple. Jesus is doing this, not by power or might, not by man's power or might, but by his Spirit. He's doing this. "Here is the man whose name is the branch, and he will branch out from this place and build the temple of the Lord. It is he who will build the temple of the Lord, and he will be clothed with majesty and will sit and rule on his throne." Okay, anyone serving him is not coveting that for themselves, making a marketplace of God, standing at a pulpit or a podium and acting like they're so special and they've figured it out, and that you're supposed to exalt and worship them. Anybody serving God knows that we are co-laborers, and that we are under Christ. We don't exalt ourselves, and we certainly don't make marketplaces of his name. Which, by the way, is something that my daughter pointed out this morning when we were doing Bible study, when talking about, how they covet the olive oil and the wine and the bread. Do you remember we talked about that when we read Revelation 6? What's being described there is a marketplace. Do you see that? And so they are selling this. They're selling this stuff that God has used in order to represent doctrine, his ministry, the Holy Spirit. They're selling it in a marketplace. That's actually very deep understanding, because it's also what he said when he was here, when he flipped over the money changers' tables and said, stop making my Father's house a marketplace. And there you see that that's exactly what they're doing. Coveting God's house and then selling it for a price. So it says in verse 13, it is he who will build the temple of the Lord, and he will be clothed with majesty and will sit and rule on his throne. If anyone is trying to exalt themselves above Christ or set themselves up with him, do that sort of thing, which is what these prostitutes do, setting up people and then giving them nicknames. Oh, you're apostle. Ooh, apostle. Oh, you're bishop. Oh, you're pope. You're priest. These people don't have in mind what is important to God. They are not in his kingdom. They are not serving his kingdom. And he will be a priest on his throne, and there will be harmony between the two. The crown will be given to Heldai, Tobijah, Jediah, and Hen, son of Zephaniah, as a memorial in the temple of the Lord. Those who are far away will come and help build the temple of the Lord, and you will know that the Lord Almighty has sent me to you. This will happen if you diligently obey the Lord your God. If you diligently obey the Lord your God. Check your fruit, guys. Just make sure that you're diligently obeying the Lord your God. Are you observing Sabbath? You assembling? I don't even have enough time to do the book of Revelation one chapter per week. You don't have enough time. Check your fruit and make sure that you're in the right standing with God, because you're about to lose your salvation. Let's go to chapter 5 and see why God is upset. Now, let me tell you something. Chapter 4 is already talking about the witnesses. So now we're moving on to chapter 5. So the witnesses are only going to be here for a certain amount of time. Now look what he says in chapter 5. I looked again, and there before me was a flying scroll. He asked me, what do you see? I answered, I see a flying scroll 20 cubits long and 10 cubits wide. And he said to me, this is the curse that's going out over the whole land. For according to what it says on one side, every thief will be banished. A thief, by the way, is one who does not enter the pen by the gate. They enter any other way to get to those sheep. They are a thief. That is what you've been listening to on YouTube. That is what you've been listening in your counterfeit churches. Thieves. They have not sat in the counsel of God. They are not being cleaned up. They do not have a testimony to share with you. That is what you have sold yourself to, and you need to come out of Babylon. And the only way that you're going to be brought out of Babylon is for Babylon to be brought out of you. If you continue in the prostitutions of the harlot Catholic Church and the prostitutes that bore out of her, that makes you a prostitute. If you continue to listen to people who do not shepherd you back to God, who covet and usurp and make a marketplace of God, you will be as guilty as the one you're consulting. Those are thieves. This is the curse that's going out over the whole land. For according to what it says on one side, every thief will be banished. And according to what it says on the other, everyone who swears falsely will be banished. What are they swearing falsely? You're calling yourself a Christian when you're not even living that out. What does it mean to you to be a Christian? That you celebrate Christmas? Who told you to do that? The Feast of Nativity, the Feast of Little Images that you set up, that is not in the Bible. At least not as a commanded holy day. Where did you get it from? Do you know? The harlot Catholic Church. Where did you get the image of the cross from? The harlot Catholic Church. Constantine the Fake. Where did you get Saturday and Sunday from? The harlot Catholic Church. Do you get the picture? If you continue in the things that the harlot of counterfeit Christianity established, that makes you anti-Christ. That's what's inside of you, because that's what's coming out of you. Where are you going to be justified, people of God? Your heart. Whatever is in your heart is going to come out of your right hand, your deeds, and your forehead. The things that you think, the things you believe, and ultimately the things that you say. This is a curse that is going out over the whole land, over the thieves and everyone who swears falsely. There's another curse that the Bible talks about in the Old Testament. It's the curse of bitter water. And in Revelation, it talks about the bitter water that happens when that star wormwood falls to the sea. Do you understand what this is? All who swear falsely, all that curse of bitter water in Leviticus only affected wives who had committed adultery against their husbands. Well, God has talked about adultery that you commit against him with the enemy of God in this world. So here's another way of looking at this curse, is that whoever is swearing falsely, whoever is an adulterous liar, is going to experience this curse. And in the curse of bitter water, what would happen is that the woman's thigh would waste away. If she was pregnant, she would miscarry. Her stomach would become distended. Here, you're going to see that it's going to enter the house. You are a house of those who swear falsely, and it will destroy you, both your timbers and your stones. The Lord Almighty declares, I will send it out, and it will enter the house of the thief, and the house of anyone who swears falsely by my name. It will remain in that house and destroy it completely, both its timbers and its stones. Then the angel who was speaking to me came forward and said to me, look up and see what is appearing. I asked, what is it? He replied, it's a basket. And he added, this is the iniquity of the people throughout the land. Then the cover of lead was raised, and there in the basket sat a woman. He said, this is wickedness, and he pushed her back into the basket and pushed its lead cover down on it. A woman, by the way, is a church. And what he's talking about here is a church that is also a kingdom of the Antichrist. We know what that Antichrist is. It started with papal Rome. It continued in the prostitutes that bore out of her. Then in the false prophet of the United States. Then in the image of the Antichrist, which is counterfeit Israel. This is all one kingdom. It's a divided kingdom. And so sometimes it's referred to as one church or one kingdom. Sometimes it's referred to as many. But we all know that ultimately it's one kingdom that is divided. Then I looked up, and there before me were two women with the wind in their wings. They had wings like that of a stork, and they lifted up the basket between heaven and earth. Where are they taking the basket? I asked the angel who was speaking to me. He replied, to the country of Babylonia, to build a house for it. When the house is ready, the basket will be set there in its place. Babylonia, Babylon, that is also a way to describe the Antichrist kingdom. So what's happening here in Zechariah, that by chapter 6, God is angry and he's sending all of this? Well, the witnesses have come. They've warned. He's sending out a curse to all those who swear falsely in his name, all those claiming to be Jews, claiming to be Christians. And then he's building a house for those tares that are going to be separated from the wheat and are going into, ultimately, the winepress of his wrath. And so now, he's sending these judgments that are described in Zechariah 6 and that are described in Revelation 6. Now, there's something else that I wanted to touch base with you on, because as we were reading Revelation 6, as I was doing that video, I think I ultimately came to, I think that the sixth seal is actually talking about the time just before Jesus comes, when the sun is darkened, the moon turns blood red, the stars drop like as figs from a fig tree. But I went on to study this a little bit further, and the thing, so we know that happens before Jesus comes. And what I was trying to discern is, well, there's this earthquake, and then the heavens are being rolled up like a scroll. And so now heaven is perishing, right? Heaven is being rolled up like a scroll, and there's going to be a new heaven and a new earth. And I remember things like Jesus said that heaven and earth are not going to pass away. That his words will not pass away. Heaven and earth will pass away before his words pass away. And then we also see in Isaiah 34 that it says, come near, you nations, and listen, pay attention, you peoples. Let the earth hear, and all that is in it, the world, and all that comes out of it. The Lord is angry with all nations. His wrath is on all their armies. He will totally destroy them. He will give them over to slaughter. Their slain will be thrown out. Their dead bodies will stink. The mountains will be soaked with their blood. All the stars in the sky will be dissolved. The heavens will be rolled up like a scroll, and the starry host will fall like withered leaves from the vine, like shriveled figs from the fig tree. Well, here's the thing. The heavens are still there when Jesus is in the clouds and he's calling his people up. The heavens are not rolled up like a scroll. He doesn't start destroying the earth until after the resurrection. And so what I was saying in the previous video is that I believe that that's covering the time from just before Jesus comes to then the seventh trumpet being blown and everything being destroyed. And also in Revelation 6, the very last paragraph says that let me just read it to you directly. Then the kings of the earth, the princes, the generals, the rich, the mighty, and everyone else, both slave and free, hid in caves and among the rocks of the mountains. They called out to the mountains and rocks, fall on us and hide us from the face of him who sits on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb, for the great day of their wrath is come, and who can withstand it? Well, his great wrath actually comes during that 45 days, from the 1290th day to the 1335th day, while God's people are still here. His great wrath has begun. That's the time that Jesus spoke of in Matthew 24, when he said, this is going to be a time of great distress, such as has not happened on the earth since the beginning until then. So we already know that it's starting at that time. But the time of which he's starting to destroy the earth and the heavens is after. And it's not until Revelation 21 that we actually see that there's a new heaven and a new earth. And so we understand that there's this passing away of the old. I'm not sure that it necessarily matters that we nail down like exactly when that's happening, but we know that it begins to happen in the time of distress. In the time of great distress, such as has not happened since the beginning of the world until then, or as it's referred to in Revelation as the Great Tribulation. We know that it is going to start during that time, but we also know that actually it starts at the end of that time. That's when the sun is darkened, because in Matthew 24, Jesus says, immediately following the distress of those days, the sun will be darkened and the moon turned to blood. And so I want you to think about, because I know that this is something you guys have not been taught in counterfeit Christianity, because you've been taught so much about pre-tribulation rapture and you don't need to worry about any of this, so you haven't bothered to study it or to attune your hearts to it. But you're going to be here. The word says in Revelation that the multitude in white robes come out of the Great Tribulation. You're going to be here. And furthermore, I showed you in the previous video that in Revelation 6, it says the full number of your brothers and sisters, the servants of God, are going to be killed just as you have been. So you're going to die. You're going to be here for some really bad times, and then you're going to die. And then you're going to rise to life and go up in that resurrection if you're his. So let's just step back and try to conceptualize this, okay? What Jesus has said, he's talked about deliverance. Never once does he talk about deliverance as the casting out of a spirit or the driving out of a spirit. That's the language he uses for spirits. Casting out, driving out. Deliverance is never used to describe that. So if you've been listening to people who talk about their deliverance ministry, they're not speaking on the authority of God. Why are you listening to them? They have no idea what they're talking about. There's no truth in people who speak on their own authority because they do so for their own glory. You have to speak on the authority of the one who sent you in order to be a person of truth. God has used Zion in order to describe Zion giving birth to her children. Zion is no sooner in labor than does she give birth to a son. And of course, they're talking about Jesus. Who's ever heard of such a thing? And then he also talks about the labor pains that are going to get closer and closer together, right? He established labor in order for us to understand this. Not the other way around. He's not like, oh, you know what? That would be a good metaphor for me to use. No, he established it in order for you to understand. When a woman's in labor, her labor pains start getting closer together and more intense. And then what happens, guys? Delivery! Deliverance! In Isaiah 66 verse 9, God says, shall I bring a baby to the point of birth and not give delivery? And he says that great wrath is not for you. He is about to destroy the world, to destroy the earth and the people in it. And you are going to be delivered from that. Do you understand? He's talking about salvation. He's not talking about the casting out of a spirit, but that, superficial, shallow nonsense that people have distorted into a doctrine so that they can make a marketplace makes you not understand what you're even doing. That you are laboring, that you are going through those birth pains until that moment of delivery, but that's your hope. That's your hope, that you're going to carry that baby in your arms. And that he is going to deliver you from all that. So if you understand that destruction is about to be brought, and that you're being spared from it, you're being called up into the clouds to meet Christ, to meet Christ and be rescued and passed over. The ultimate fulfillment of Passover, in which you are spared from that wrath. Then you can understand when the heavens are being rolled up and the earth is being destroyed by fire, right? Not by flood, because he made that promise to that covenant with Noah, giving the sign of the rainbow, that he would not destroy humanity by flood again. But we've been told by Peter that he's going to destroy it by fire. And I really believe that that's not literal fire. It's consuming fire of God. So I just wanted to touch base with you on that. I do believe that he's talking about from the time just before Jesus comes to after the seventh trumpet, when the bowls of wrath are poured out. All right, those were the couple things that I wanted to touch base with you on. Next video will be Revelation 7. Please discern this with God.